Scary Movie 2. Where to begin with this one? It's a disappointing movie, I'll say that much. Unfortunately, I am a really big fan of the first movie, the original Scary Movie. I think it's one of the best comedies of its time and one of the best spoof movies ever, really. I can't really blame it for all the spoof movies that follow, like date movie, epic movie, disaster movie, all that stupid crap. Even though they came from one of the creators of, or two of the creators of Scary Movie, and all the other horrible parody movies that this kind of started a trend. And thankfully, that's pretty much done at this point. So no more of those, which is good. But that first Scary Movie, I mean, it was really, really funny, and it was clever, and it had good raunchy humor, and I loved it. And I first saw it when it came out. I saw it twice in theaters. I got it on VHS when it came out. I watched it over and over and over and over and over. And of course, I was looking forward to the second movie, right? And it's an interesting thing, like worth kind of meditating on, and thinking back to that time. First movie came out in 2000. And it became a huge hit. And obviously, they wanted to fast track a sequel. This came out in 2001. The sequel, so very, very quickly got into theaters. But where do you take a sequel to Scary Movie, right? So, I mean, it is based around mainly Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, which were, two popular movies at the time. Which, I don't, if it's redundant, fine. Like Scream originally was titled a Scary Movie, and it's pretty much a satire of scary movies in and of itself. But Scary Movie just kind of takes it all the further and points out those movies' own kind of flaws and little nitpicks that you can put out, and does it in a comedic way that's pretty funny. So it focused on those with little references to other horror movies and other things and other jokes and all that stuff. So where do you take the sequel in, like, where do you take the characters? Like, do you have the same characters? Like, a lot of them died. Or do you, like, start new characters? What do you do, basically? So, I mean, there's so many different ways this could have gone, but I guess it goes in an interesting way where, yeah, it's a completely different story. This one focusing more on ghost stories, ghost-themed horror films, which, I mean, like, that's kind of a thing, like, they weren't as huge as Scream, right? Like, so what do they parody, like The Haunting or like 13 Ghosts, I think. So I mean, it's mainly The Haunting, I would say, is like the main inspiration behind the plot of this film. But we do have returning characters from the first film, and like a very flimsy kind of continuity. Like, they're in high school in the first movie, and they come back in the second movie starting college. And, you could have swore some of them died, but they're back. But then you can kind of say that about, like, Scream, too. Like, didn't you think, like, Dewey was dead at the end of Scream? But anyway, whatever. So we have most of I'd say, like, half the original cast back, including Marlon Wayans as Shorty, who also co-wrote the film, and Sean Wayans as Rick, who also co-wrote the film. So it's a Wayans-centered film, and that's the thing about this movie. It's the last with the Wayans' involvement, as far as I know. Like, they got obviously character credits in the sequels that followed when it kind of got taken over by the Zuckerbergs of Airplane fame. But this would be the last Wayans one. So we have their characters from the first film. We also have, of course, Anna Faris's character from the first film, Cindy, who originally was, I guess, like a parody of both Neve Campbell in Scream and Jennifer Love Hewitt in I Know What You Did Last Summer, but now she's just Cindy from Scary Movies, so she's not really a parody of anything now. So what tangled webs we weave, huh? So, that's generally the plot, and, they kind of tie it in to this Exorcist spoof, which I'll admit is really good. And one thing to keep in mind at the time, they're always trying to parody recent movies. Exorcist had the version you've never seen, so it was in theaters again. So it was in the pop culture zeitgeist or whatever you want to call it. It was in the pop culture consciousness, I guess you could say, at the time. So I guess an Exorcist spoof was warranted, and it's a good one. Like we have Veronica Cartwright parodying the Ellen Burstyn role, and it's the scene where like she has the party, right, and they're at the piano, and Andy Richter is one of the priests, and like it is kind of a funny scene. It's like they're playing like these old timey songs, and it's like shake your ass, but watch yourself. Shake your ass. Show me what you're working with. Anyway, but as she does in the film, Megan, played by Natasha Lyonne, actually, in the Reagan makeup. She comes down. She pees on the floor, and like it just keeps on going and going and going. It's pretty funny. It's a funny scene. And then we have the Father Harris, or Father Marin parody, Father McFeely, played by James Woods. Pretty good Max von Sydow kind of visage to him. So he looks the part. Apparently it was originally going to be Marlon Brando playing the role, which I don't think it would be as good, to be quite honest. But then he he got sick and died or something, and he didn't do the movie, obviously. So James Woods, I think, good enough in the role, and I think the scene works really well. There's some goofy stuff, but for the most part, it's a funny scene. The movie doesn't keep up the same momentum, as that scene, unfortunately. So there's a lot of really stale jokes, and that's really what it all amounts to. So the original Scary Movie, we got really quickly what it was trying to do, what it was trying to parody. We knew kind of the cliches going into it, and everything else was just gravy. And there were a lot of really funny and unexpected jokes. But now with the sequel, we need all that, and now we expect all that. So there's a lot more they have to bring to the table. So they cook up this plot about this possession being linked to this haunted house, and Anna Faris somehow being connected to this woman and this ghost and all this stupid stuff, which doesn't really matter. We just want to see spoofs and parodies of stuff and funny, goofy stuff. But like, what do they really parody? Like, okay, The Haunting, even at the time, that was like 2 or 3 years ago from release, and it wasn't that huge of a hit. Hollow Man, which was a recent movie, but like, again, it like wasn't like the hugest thing. What Lies Beneath, like, they parodied it a little bit, but I don't know, anything else is just either too obscure or too old. Like, like they do this whole parody of this Nike commercial that was like really popular at the time, but you're watching this now and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of sort of remember that. Kind of like when they did the "What's Up" from the previous movie, but the thing is, that's funny in and of itself. In this, kind of this film's version of that parody, trying to do a commercial parody, it just doesn't work, and it's stupid. And like the other like dated references, like the bird, like the foul-mouthed bird is like, "You are the weakest link, goodbye." It's like, who remembers that? I mean, it's so stupid. So like, movies that people don't really remember, movies that are like so old you're not sure why they're even parodying it. Like they throw in like some Poltergeist stuff too. They throw in some Titanic stuff. Like Titanic was like almost 10 years old at this point. Or no, maybe not that old, but like 5 years old or so. Not that recent is what I'm trying to say. So why they parodying it, and like, "Dude, where's my car?" It's just so stupid. So however it worked with the first movie, I don't know. Like, I guess just all the stars aligned, and the comedic proof is in the pudding, I guess. Like, it's a really funny movie, and it's a really well put together movie, and we do have quite a bit of writers, like the three Wayans brothers, Aaron Seltzer and Simon Hedberg, and I'm sure other people. The Wayans returned for this one, but not Friedberg and Seltzer. I guess maybe they're part of it. Like, it's interesting. Like, you see what they did in the first movie, then you kind of see parodies and movies that each of them did later on, right? Like, Friedberg and Seltzer did a Date movie, an Epic movie, and those pieces of shit. So you can kind of almost recognize the humor that they put into the first movie. Then you see stuff like, Marlon Wayans is a Haunted House and Haunted House 2 and whatever the hell else he's done. No, he had a really good stand-up on Netflix recently. But you can tell his humor, like what went into that first movie. So that first movie is the sum of all this different type of humor that doesn't really work as well separately. Date movie, Epic movie, those are pieces of shit. Like a Haunted House 2, pieces of shit movies. But the first Scary Movie, I think, is just comedic gold, and unfortunately, it's inspired these other parody movies and its own terrible sequels, including this one. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan, I have to say, but I do revisit it every couple of years because I just kind of think maybe there's something worth revisiting, and there sort of is. I think it does have a really good cast, like a really funny and talented cast to the film. Not just the returning characters, but we have new additions in Tim Curry, Chris Elliott, playing the guy. Like, if there's one memorable scene of, if there's one memorable character, one memorable scene about this movie, it's Chris Elliott with the little hand who's preparing the dinner, and it's a stupid scene, but I gotta admit it's kind of funny. My germs, I don't know. He's good to watch, Chris Elliott, and David Cross. I mean, he's a really funny comedic actor. Obviously, Arrested Development. He's very funny and physically funny, right? There's one scene his character's in a wheelchair, right? So he's trying to get up the stairs and he can't do it. And it's really funny. I give it credit to the comedic chops, the cast, right? So and credit to Anna Faris, who this was her series, right? She's the one consistent, except until maybe the fifth film, if they got that. Yeah, I think they got to a fifth film. So she delivers each time, and she's weird that she just was this parody character in the first film, but I don't know, she becomes a full-fledged character by the end of it all, and we do kind of like her, and obviously what Anna Faris brings to her, very gifted and funny comedic actress. So I mean, there's good stuff about the movie. There's good aspects to it, and even if you want, just watch the Exorcist parody at the beginning. That's funny enough, right? So I think there's some worthwhile scenes to the movie, but ultimately I think it sucks. All the other sequels sucked, and the only good one is the first. So it's my review of Scary Movie 2. Not a glowing review, but what can you do? Thank you very much for watching 31 Days of Horror. Still reviewing horror movie reviews every day. Still reviewing horror movies every day on the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more, and until next time, stay scared.